So, hello, sir. First of all, welcome to TEDxMAIMS podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing for the podcast today. So, my first question to you will be, how would you explain Blue Planet to a 15-year-old?
A very important question. My name is Prashant Singh, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. I think Blue Planet, when we started versus where we are today, I think a lot of evolution happened to cater to the newer generation, right? I think what is important is the kind of purpose the newer generation, the youths of future, they get related to. I think that is an important as aspiration for Blue Planet to evolve where it is today. More focused on circularity, sustainability, making sure that waste as a resource should become a reality, and we should focus more on living a circular lifestyle rather than just getting away from the mindset of not in my backyard kind of scenario. So I think that is where Blue Planet has made some significant progress to make sure that waste as a resource, when it's get looked for a solution oriented approach, that is where the magic happens as far as converting waste into energy, into useful products, into recycle, reuse or upcycling kind of concepts. So that is where we have made some significant progress over the last few years.
Okay, that's great. And what was your motivation to start Blue Planet?
See, I think we have been serial entrepreneurs, right? So we have built platforms, businesses. Myself was based in US for a good part of last 2 decades before. So, but at some point of our entrepreneurial journey, the power of impact and the scale of giving it back becomes imperative, right? So that is where when we started evaluating our next adventure, the whole impact story became at the core of it. And once we delved deeper, I think the magnitude of the problem and the non-availability of the right solutions, I think that gave us a lot of opportunity and the potential where it can scale up both as a business as well as the impact and the powerful impact that it can create for our neighborhoods, communities, and societies at large.
Okay, so my next question to you is, how did you start the Blue Planet? Like, what were the challenges you faced? And yeah.
See, I think when we were entering the sector was highly fragmented, right? So I think if you ask in a crude way, I mean, in today's world also, we have somebody else comes and collects the waste, somebody else transports it, somebody else takes it to a secondary station, somebody else process and landfill management. So anywhere from, I would say, 3 to 5, 6 players are involved, right? So that we thought that as an opportunity, because when, let's say, half a dozen people own solution to a problem never gets solved, right? So, and that is what we wanted to disrupt by building an integrated platform for waste management and circularity. And once you build that platform, how to deploy technologies, right? Be it segregation technologies, be it processing and upcycling technologies, that became backbone of the business, right? So we have our own technologies where we can segregate the waste into different fractions, right? There are technologies that we own which can convert your organic waste to biogas, which can convert plastic to polyfuel, and so on and so forth. So that the technology ownership, once you get the access to waste, and once you package everything with an ESG mandated execution, right? So that you are not only solving one problem and creating 3 others, right? So you need to make sure the holistic approach for solutions and making sure that we are able to build a very robust foundation for a circular economy. That is something that we have been able to achieve over the last few years. We are a fairly young 7-8-year-old company, but we are currently number 2 waste management player in Singapore. We are number 3 in New Zealand. We are for landfill biomining. We are one of the world's largest companies where we have cleared more than 700 acres of land and processed more than 14 million tons of waste from landfills across India. So that is the kind of impact that we have already created so far in a short span of 7 to 8 years.
There is so much impact that your company has created in last 8 years. What are your plans for future?
See, I think we uh, we are just scratching the surface, if you ask me, right? Because most of the our journey so far was more focused on building the platform, right? So if you look at it over the last year and a half, we have reinvented ourselves as a company. Okay, so we were mainly focused on waste management and making sure the entire storyline was around processing and upcycling, but the kind of impact and the narrative was not getting justified. Okay. So what we tried to do is we changed ourselves from a waste management or solutions company to a more circularity or a sustainability platform, right? Where waste management is means to an end, not the end itself. Okay. So what does that mean? I'll give you an example. So we did a project in Chennai, for example. So Chennai landfill biomining project is one of the India's largest successfully completed landfill biomining project. Okay. But once we took a step back, like of course we cleared 1.5 million tons of waste and we avoided so much CO2 emissions going into the environment. But once we took a step back and tried to analyze the narrative little differently, right? So the entire landfill was a part of a wetland or a bird sanctuary before. Okay, so it used to be a Pelikarnai lake, a bird sanctuary or a wetland earlier. And within that wetland, we created 250-acre landfill site in the last 2-3 decades, right? So within that, we almost 96 acres of that land was cleared by us and we handed it back to the municipality, which in our lifetime will again become a bird sanctuary. That is the level of impact that we are talking about, right? So of course, the actual work is waste management or processing and segregation, but the kind of impact we are able to create for our communities, for our marine diversity and other aspects, I think that is something which is a much powerful narrative. You asked a question about future generations. So these are the things that future generations would love to get associated with. That is something that gives them a purpose in their life rather than just for our sector is not a very, how should I say, a very glamorous sector to be associated with. So, but those kind of purpose driven opportunities will surely excite and motivate newer generations to contribute and get engaged for the right reasons in the sector that we are in today. So and in that journey, just to wrap that discussion, so we have already avoided around 8 to 10 million tons of CO2 emissions going into the environment. Over the next 5 to 7 years, our goal is to make that to 40 plus million tons of CO2 emissions, right? And that is almost 4% of India's target of 1 billion tons. That is the scale that we are operating today, and with this, with the support of stakeholders and the focus that we have so far, we are very, very positive about achieving that goal there.
Yeah, that's great. Honestly, I noticed that there are so many plants in your office. Like those small details also matter a lot, I believe. Yeah. So I would also like to know about your earlier journey. Like before you started Blue Planet, how was your life like?
No, so I think this whole entrepreneurial journey has been very enriching in many ways, right? So I belong to a middle class family. My dad born and brought up in a small village in Uttar Pradesh, and my dad used to be a government servant, and he got posted in Lucknow, and he spent a lot of schooling was done there. But then when I did my master's from Indore, Devi University, that was a pretty pivotal moment for me to get out of the comfort of home and trying to experience the world. So after that, I got the opportunity to go to US to pursue my MBA studies further. I was maybe the one of the first to go to US from our village to study abroad. But that gave me a very different perspective towards life. And after the graduation, I worked there for almost 15 years. I spent almost close to 2 decades in US and into different shapes or forms. I mean, last job that I did was working with an IT services company called Mindtree. I was looking after for the product engineering business for the West Coast. And that is something which gave me a lot of courage and curiosity, right? That is something which, what more can be done, right? As far as the identifying the niche areas where a business can be developed, built and developed forward. So the first venture, myself and the two of my other partners, we have been schoolmates together. We were roommates together. So we have known each other for almost 3 decades now. And we've done multiple ventures together and fairly successful ones. I would say over the last 10 to 15 years, we would have generated around 15,000 jobs in almost 15 to 20 countries, starting from US, Brazil, Europe, and Southeast Asia. And fairly successful ventures, I would say, which have scaled from just few of us to more than few thousand people. I mean, even within Blue Planet itself, we are currently around 4 to 5,000 people in half a dozen countries today.
Yeah. So you started up with your friend, roommate, right?
And we still are like 4 years. So that's a blessing, I would say.
Yeah. Many people say that like doing business with your friend that like doesn't work out and you have like a completely different take, right?
No, absolutely. That's the reason we are where we are. I would say we are extremely blessed and lucky to build that kind of trust, camaraderie, and mutual faith. Is not an easy. It's a cherished relationship, I would say, but that has given us, I would say, the courage and empowered all of us to trust each other a lot more, right? So that we can focus on the right stuff rather than focusing on the noises around it. So it's been a very wonderful journey, I would say, and it continues to be a great relationship between us.
So where is Blue Planet exactly based?
So headquarters is in Singapore. So, but we have subsidiaries in India, 100% owned subsidiaries in India, in Malaysia, in New Zealand. We have cousins in UK. We have done globally. We have done around 170 projects in 15 countries. So starting from US, Canada, Africa, Europe, and Asia. So we have done bits and pieces of project development.
Yes. Which country have you worked majorly in?
So majorly, I would say Asia Pacific has been the focus, and India is, I would say, the groundbreak for us, right? Because of the sector we are in, the scale that India can provide, it cannot be surpassed by any other country in the region or in the world, I would say, right? So that was a bold bet for us in the beginning, because we believe that if we can solve a problem at scale in India and still build a business which is scalable on the global front, right? So most of these technologies that I was referring to earlier, although they might be developed regionally, maybe in UK, maybe in India or other countries, but every time the ethos is the same. Are they replicable and are they scalable to global standards, right? So the whole landfill business that we have today, we build that business for the global standards. So we are already talking to around 4 or 5 different countries in GCC. We are talking to Malaysia. We are talking to Philippines, New Zealand. How can we replicate this entire solution into different countries and increase the impact of the solutions that we are already there.
So my next question would be for young entrepreneurs. Like if someone is starting something of their own, it could be a very small project, it could be anything. What advice would you like to give them?
See, I think the whole startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem in India has evolved significantly over the last decade or so, right? I think the kind of challenges that entrepreneurs used to face earlier, I mean, their receptivity, their availability of funding resources, support from the government, support from the consumers itself, right? So I think the whole ecosystem is getting much better, right? But the kind of scale that and the exponential growth that India will envision over the next 25 years in the whole to make it a Viksit Bharat become a reality, I think we have to increase this scale to by 10x at least, right? So I think if you ask me very, very simple terms, I would say a newer entrepreneur should always be focusing on three C's. Okay, so one is curiosity. Okay, so curiosity is sometimes that's what happens is when people today, the younger generations, they because of their exposure and the access to so much more information, which is already bombarded on them, their inherent skill of curiosity is slowly dying, right? So your inherent skill set of curiosity should always be there, like a kid, right? I mean, like, just a 5 6 year old kid, he's so curious to learn new things, to see what more can be done, right? So that curiosity has to be very, very much entrenched. Once that curiosity is there, you need to have a commitment. Okay, to if you have something to go outside of your comfort zone, try to invest time, energy, resources to learn and enrich yourself with that, how to solve that curiosity, right? So that commitment is very, very important to make some tangible progress. But once these two things are there, you should have some courage to make sure that risk-taking appetite for that individual should be there. So no risk, no reward, right? So a little bit of courage will surely help, especially if you are entering into a entrepreneurial journey, right? So that is something which, especially for a middle class generation, so we are looking at the middle class exploding over the next 25 years in India, right? So from 400 million people, we will be 800 million people in the next 25 years, right? So, but there has to be a lot of entrepreneurs emerging from that ecosystem as well. And that can only happen if we have that courage inbuilt and people can reach that escape velocity rather than being into the shackles of the middle class.
So if you have to advise a podcast or a tech talk or a book to a 18-year-old, which book, podcast or tech talk that will be?
See, one book which I recently read, which is very relevant, is The Atomic Habits. Right? So I think that is something which people and the whole focus towards incremental progress and making consistency as a part of your daily routine, that is something which in today's generation is very rare to find, right? People want immediate gratification, right? They want far faster results. They want something which has to be a lot more immediate in nature. But unfortunately, life is not like that, right? But the right outcome to achieve your goals, your aspirations, consistency and small progress consistently being done, you will be able to achieve your goal, right? So that is a very, very good learning. I will strongly recommend people who to build those smaller, smaller milestones in your personal, professional lifestyle to make sure that consistency is there, and even a little bit more progress, I think, will take you far, far ahead rather than making decisions about immediate gratifications.
That's true. And like I see here, like there are so many people like managed so well. So for an entrepreneur starting new, or for a college student building their own startup, how would you suggest that they manage their own team, or how do they build a team?
See, I think team building is extremely important pillar for building businesses, right? So, I mean, I can tell you my journey as well. So, we have built businesses into different sectors, I would say, right? From starting from IT services to corporate services to environmental solutions and stuff. And none of us, we were not engineers, right? We were not CACS, we were not environmental engineers and stuff. But what we found that if you can identify like-minded people and build a very solid second line of leadership, right? Right? Who are experts and whom you can delegate with confidence, and they can become your guiding star for the sector, right? So that is number one feedback what I would have. So even though you might not be experts in your field, but at least build the second line who are trustworthy experts who can guide you and give you the right direction. Number two, if you look at my team here also, we take a lot of pride in selecting the right teams, right? So I think, and it makes it even more challenging, especially for the sector that we operate in. It makes it even more complicated because traditionally it has been a very uninspiring sector in necessity. So we have to teach people a lot more than their job, right? What more can the role that their jobs play, right? And bring in that whole purpose into the mix, right? So even people who might not be on the field, but if they are sitting in the office and trying to contribute some meaningful way, they can at least engage themselves and understand that what kind of impact is it creating on the guy, right? So giving that purpose driven organization, which is, and most of these players that we have, I mean, the team members that we have, they are, they have grown from the within the organization, right? So we catch them young to train them, to coach them, to mentor them, to make sure they can see the dream and the vision as we, the founders, believe in, right? So it's very difficult for anybody to unlearn a lot of older way of doing things and then make them understand the newer way. So that is another way to get associated with the right team members, so that alignment of marriage of minds and having that flexibility and giving them a purpose of towards the goal of the organization. I think it will show they have.
It's true. And so we looked at our generation, and you will find many people who are having burnouts. So, like, we were just talking, and you told me that you just landed here, and within like 1 hour, you are doing this podcast. So, how, like, do you get burnouts? Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, it's a very important aspect. So again, so I'll delve down to the same point which I mentioned earlier. Once you are really passionate about something, once that drives you, the purpose drives you, I think that fatigue, that burnout can come, but I think it balances out more, right? So better. But having said that, having, people might think that having a work-life balance in today's time, it's not a luxury, right? That is a necessity for any professional organization to make sure that balancing is maintained, right? For your personal sanity as well, right? So especially because of, we are seeing a lot of unfortunate incidences these days where a young population is getting negatively impacted health-wise, relationships-wise, and so having those work-life balance is very critical and necessary, rather than, I mean, earlier 5-10 years back it used to be a luxury kind of thing, but now I would sincerely believe that that has to be included as a part of your daily routine, or your a part of your ecosystem, to make sure that we are able to create that balance which is necessary, both personally as well as professionally.
So my last question would be to you, is there any message or anything that you would like to share with a young audience? Most of our viewers are going to be college audience. So is there any message you have for them?
See, I am very, very excited about our future generation.
Okay.
Okay. So, and this is, as they say, at least from our sector, we are the first generation which is really facing the challenges of climate change, right? But important aspect is we might be the last one who can do something about it. Okay, if we miss this opportunity, I think it will be too late, right? So I am really, really very excited about the future generations because the kind of awareness they have, the kind of engagement they have, the kind of empowerment they feel and they believe in, right? As I mean, take the example of Nepal right now, right? So we need to channelize this energy in the right direction so that the impact can be really profound, right, for years to come. But we need to make sure it's a double-edged sword, right? So we need to make sure the energy, their engagement, and their empowerment is in the right direction, and miracles will come out, right? So that's what I'm very, very hopeful for. So, but please, that would be my suggestion to the future generation and youths to make sure that they take the right practical decisions in life, which becomes more meaningful as far as impact is concerned. So that meaningful is important word for them. Otherwise, I think, and be patient a little bit. I think patience is something which it has become a slippery slope over the last few years. So that is something that we need to learn and get away from the nuances of being impatient.
Okay. So we will be ending the podcast. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. It was great talking to you. I got to learn a lot about your company and honestly motivated about, like, I just honestly appreciate how much work you are doing for the generations to come. So
Thank you so much.
sir. We'll be ending the podcast with this. Thank you so much.